Hello and welcome to Items On, the show where you get to follow your favorite Melee players and personalities both on and off the sticks. My name's Ethiopium, and today we have the legend Morsecode762 with us. Morse, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. How about you?
Living the dream, man. Get to talk to you, man. Uh, let's
That's yeah.
let's start how we usually start the show, which is how did you get into Smash, and what was the time period and what you were doing before you got into Smash?
Yeah. I was in high school when I got into a Smash. My high school buddy David showed me a video of I think the name is Narcissa, uh, doing like combos and stuff. My buddy David showed me a video of Narcissa doing like melee combos and explaining some stuff about melee, and that was my first contact with competitive melee. Uh, at some point, somebody found some videos of Project M 3.0, and I got involved there. But then at some point, uh, during that time, I think it was like 2013, 2014, we didn't think we were good enough to go to tournaments, so we never went. But we played a lot in high school, and we kept up with like VGBC back in the day. And then Smash for the 3DS came out, and there's this guy, TJ Kirby, who went by the tag Egg, who so at this for context, at this GameStop release event for Smash for the 3DS, we had my friends and I had brought a CRT, Melee, and Product M like 3.0, and we had like a little fun, like we like played in the store, and Egg comes in and he wipes the floor with all of us and suggests that we go to a tournament out in Howell. And that was the first tournament that I had gone to. It was called Beach and Biweekly. I'm not sure which one it was, but it's in Beach's challenge account, where I can still like look it up and I can find like the bracket and I can recognize the fake tags that my friends and I had when we entered these events. So that was my first contact with competitive melee. I had played Brawl, I had played Melee beforehand. I had those games, but I played League of Legends mostly from like season 1 to season 3. Maybe not season 1. I think like my first like memory of League was either Rumble or Vayne being released. But that I played that before I got into Melee. When I started playing Melee, I went cold turkey on League. I started just playing Melee consistently. Uh, Even more so when I found out about Smash Ladder and net play through I think it was called Chillin' with Chew or Chillin' and Chew, where they showcased Melee net play, and really from there, that was, I guess I think that answers your questions of what was doing beforehand, and how I got in contact with the Melee scene.
When you started playing Melee, did you think that it was going to take you to like this competitive level, or were you just having fun with it? What was your mindset when you first got in?
I from my perspective, I was a very so before I did this, I did club swim, and I was never particularly good at it, and but I'd done club swim for so long that I had this ego. And before I got into Melee, I through freshman year to like junior year of high school, I saw people who essentially had like bigger wingspans than I had go from not knowing how to swim to like gapping me and like lapping me and beating me, right? And that was like a very big blow to my ego. And so I kind of resolved, or I uh, kind of resigned myself to accepting that I would never be like I had an ego of like trying to be the best, but I kind of resolved myself to kind of recognizing that I'd never be the best at something and show up, so I shouldn't want to be the best. And so when I first started playing, I resigned myself to like a not top tier. because I felt that one, if I wasn't playing a top tier, I'd never have to like deal with that sort. I never have to face a situation. I'd have to like accept that I was going to lose. And two, as a carrier from League of Legends, I felt that top tiers always got nerfed. And so if I picked a mid tier, the only thing that like mid tiers would ever get were buffs or like changes that were neutral, I guess. And even though Melee is not a patched game, Project M was. And so that's why I picked Samus, because I felt Samus was a middle of the road character that couldn't be buffed, definitely couldn't be nerfed. And so anything that I had learned would be consistent, maybe not consistent, but it would be the value of what I had learned with the character would either increase or remain constant. So I felt that a long-term investment into a mid-tier would be better off in terms of product M, and then in terms of like making sure that my attitude towards like competitive or like playing games was in check, because I'd learned that sort of thing from competitive swim.
That's really interesting. I want to touch on that a little bit. You're talking about how you want to pick a mid tier in order to maybe quell those competitive feelings and the nerves that come, or the ego that comes with that as well. Do you, why Samus then instead of like Luigi or another character, for example? What draw you into Samus specifically?
It was how do I describe it? It was back in the day, I saw DJ Nintendo. So the context was so back in the day, I saw DJ Nintendo versus AMSA, and DJ playing Bowser, and that's what I picked first was Bowser in Melee. Before that, I picked Lucario because I felt Lucario was like a badass character,
Mm-hmm.
and in PM 3.0, I think it's called like the magic system. The magic system was more expansive, and so you could do more with the character. So I just like Lucario inherently. But eventually, one of my friends, Alex played Samus, and at some point, I think I saw maybe like a year into like playing, I saw a Smash doc. I watched a Smash doc, and I saw Wes doing like missile cancels, and I thought to myself, "Wow, that's really cool. I want to learn that." And conveniently enough, Samus was not a top tier, and so I picked Samus, and I learned all these like funny little techniques. And my high school friends and I essentially joke still about how I stole Alex's main, because now he plays Yoshi in like Charizard. So to be a little short, I did pick I picked a low tier originally in Melee. Maybe not so in Product M, but eventually I ended up stealing one of my friend's mains, and I just kind of stuck with it.
Looking back now, after all the years, almost a decade of playing, are you happy with that decision, or do you like look back on it and think, oh, maybe I could have gone with like this character or that character?
No, I think I'm pretty satisfied so far. I'd say that I think I wouldn't have it any other way. I'd say that I don't regret. I'd say I don't regret choosing Samus. I'd say that it carries over. It carried over from a mentality from League, or at least I like playing tanks in League, and I like not dying with characters, so I like playing Samus. So I don't regret not playing Samus. So definitely. So I'd say no. I don't regret playing Samus at all. I'd say I made a good. I was lucky. I made a good pick, and I stuck with it.
Nice. That's good. That's always good to hear, and I'm glad that you did, because your Samus is sick. I want to talk a little bit about PM a bit, because I know that you're a big fan of PM. You're still playing. Was that sort of the similar story of you getting into the PM scene, and where, I mean, do you envision yourself as a PM player who also plays melee, or a melee player who also plays PM, or both?
Well, I used to think I was a PM player that played melee. Back when before COVID, uh, I was more into PM back in the day. And when people weren't playing PM on Smash Ladder, I would play melee as a default. And Samus was similar enough in PM or melee than she was in PM that it just kind of worked. So I played Samus in both PM and melee because the character was similar. We played similar, and so yeah. So for the first maybe like until 2018, 2019, I thought I was a PM player that played melee. When COVID hit, and when Slippy became a big thing, and PM did not get rollback, I felt that the PM scene became it's not like PM players, like there weren't a lot of new players. It kind of became a really solid core of like friends that played the game, but it wasn't like a huge group of like tournament grinders, right?
Mm-hmm.
There weren't a lot of players that were trying to grind the game out and really understand it and get really good at it, and as a result get really good by it. I mean, there were a lot of people who were trying to get really good at the game, but how do I articulate? The scene got really small comparatively to melee, and so it was easier to play melee during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So I became more of a melee player that like kind of played PM whenever it was convenient. So I'd say I'm more of a melee player right now, but I've put some mileage into Ultimate back during my bachelor's degree in Grand Rapids. I've put a lot of mileage into PM. I put a lot of mileage into melee. So I'm considering like kind of trying out Brawlhalla for shits and giggles too. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I'd like to think that I'm a platform fighter player, but chances are I'm just a melee player that just plays other games whenever it's convenient.
That's interesting. I would love to learn. I mean, I'm not that big into PM. We just didn't have that much of a scene back in Montana. And so I'd love to learn your takes on like one unique thing about PM and melee that you like, and one unique thing about PM or melee that you dislike in those games.
The one thing what I really liked about PM was the camera. I'd say that the camera in the newer games is a lot better than the camera in melee. I'd say that there are situations in melee where the camera will it's not like fast enough to catch up to where characters are going, and so they like characters will end up in like the little bubble outside of the screen or outside of the camera when they're not at the blast zone. So there's like examples of that I think are that are like anecdotal examples of that, where in PM that wouldn't happen as often.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say one thing I dislike about PM though is it's like the balancing almost, where I think it's the balancing, it's a lack of training tools, because I'd say that people make suggestions like you have all these people making a bunch of suggestions on how to like change characters, but and regardless of whether or not they're good players or bad players, you don't know, because there's no real training tools to like use in PM. There's no real way of like testing and validation, I guess, of what changes you can make in the game, and it kind of sucks, I'd say. So, for example, if a change was to happen in like PM to like knockback growth, it'd be kind of cumbersome to actually like test it, but you could test it. But based off of like a knockback growth change, I guess, is there an impact on combos? Is there an impact on kills? Well, in like Project, or maybe not Project, in Uncle Punch, right? You could have a computer, like, so you could set a DI for a computer. The computer could DI a certain way. But in PM, you're going to have to do that yourself. And that kind of stinks. Just like an anecdotal thing. So I'd say I like the camera in PM in comparison to Melee, but I don't like how the game is balanced and how there aren't really any training tools in PM. And I don't think there's going to be, I highly doubt PM's development is ever going to include training tools, which kind of sucks, but it's whatever.
Yeah. Are you excited for, I know they're working on rollback for Brawl and for PM. Are you excited for that? Do you think that that's going to cause a resurgence like how Slippy did?
It might cause an uptick. I'm hoping it does, but I won't be too dissatisfied if it doesn't. PM died, 3.6 died a good death. It's kind of about time for P plus to kind of like not be in the limelight anymore, I guess, or at least to stick within its friend group, I suppose, or stick within the groups that play it. Mm-hmm. So it's whatever.
And I guess last question on this type of questioning is, are you interested in playing HDR, the remix for Smash Ultimate, or have you even played it yet?
I've played a little bit of it. It seems interesting, but the I've heard that it's hard to modify a Switch in order to actually play HDR, and so it's interesting, but I don't think PM doesn't have like, or at least I don't think there's like an HDR scene in Michigan. Mm-hmm. If there is, I'd like to be corrected, but like I know for sure, like anecdotally for Project M, if I want to go play Project M or HDR, I have to travel to Chicago or Illinois or like Wisconsin and play there. And that's like a long ass drive. And I highly doubt that it's just not worth the time to play those games, or it's not worth like the travel time to play those games, which sucks, but it's how it is, right?
Yeah. I feel that. I want to move on a little bit with the questioning. I want to talk about your style of play with Samus. I think a lot of Samuses are sort of unique in how they play, and yours is no exception. I'd love to know, as you rose through the ranks for the past years, what were you modeling your play style on, and especially with a character that has such strengths and weaknesses like Samus?
I'd say that my playstyle was affected by netplay at the time. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, it was delay-based netcode, and you could also add delay time to your you could add delay time to the game to prevent frame rate drops. And as a result, certain timings that were tight were hard to perform. There were situations where, I could not up B out of shield because the timing that I was used to, based like how do I describe it? You can't up B out of shield in shield stun. Mm-hmm. And so there would be times where if I have to change the delay, the frame, like this delay, to accommodate somebody that's further away from me or closer to me, I might mess up that timing, and I might up B too early, and I'll just be still stuck in shield. Or maybe I'll up B too late, and I'll get the up B, but I won't hit the opponent. And so I kind of came to the conclusion that doing less was better than trying to do as much as you possibly could, because if you did less, but what you did worked, you should be like it was, but you were, or at least I was better off, and I was rewarded more by doing less and making sure that what I did worked than trying to do more and missing things that I could, like, missing things because of how delay worked in the old style of net play.
Yeah.
So I think that answers your question. I think.
Yeah, definitely does. What do you think is unique to your Samus? Like things that you see yourself in your VODs doing that maybe other Samuses don't.
Gosh, that would require me to actually watch my VODs. Uh, Maybe just sitting there and doing nothing. Or at least back in the day, not doing much.
Mm-hmm.
There are I describe it. There are situations where I have a feeling where moving, like trying to interact or trying to move and not interacting, lead to the same sort of situation where, or how do I describe it? I feel Samus is like a yes man, where if the opponent wants to play a certain way, I don't have much of a say in what the opponent wants to do. And so if there are situations where the opponent is, if I'm not in range of the opponent, all I can really do is take center stage and just kind of wait. And so that's I'd say that's my unique, or at least my unique trait, my anecdotal unbacked unique trait that needs to be verified, is that I'm willing to kind of resign myself to what my opponent wants to do,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of play the game off of that.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Do you feel that it tricks your opponents in some ways? I mean, that's usually a look that they don't really get in Melee.
Uh, I don't really think of it as tricking my opponents. I think it's just kind of I think it's more like I don't consider my opponent when I don't consider my opponent's reaction when I do that. I guess it's more like I guess the feedback loop is until you want to do something, I'm willing to do this. And
I see.
I'm not going to get because if I try something else, I'm probably going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of resigning myself, I guess, to the to a slower strategy. But I'd say that for me, at least, it works.
That makes sense. I like to switch it up a little bit. I want to ask you about your competitive mindset today, in 2023, when you enter these tournaments, you're making big upsets, beating great players that, like for example, being Jmook, and then you're going to Bodied now, you're entering these big tournaments, Michigan growing again in the scene. What's your mindset entering these tournaments? Is the goal to win? Is the goal to, are you looking to try to get a ranking, or are you trying to work on a couple things in game? What's your mindset going in?
Right now, I've kind of come to the conclusion where it's like not wanting anything, not asking yourself or not expecting much of yourself, because you're not or because one is unable to be the best, and because one is unable to be the best, resigning oneself to not wanting anything from not wanting a specific outcome. I'm running over my words. So it's my previous mindset. While it makes sense, it's also kind of holding me back, because there's a certain amount of an attitude change where I think that one needs to want something. I think I need to be able to want to win. And it's kind of hard to do that, having the mentality that I've had for so long. But I think that that sort of need to do that sort of thing is important.
Mm-hmm.
But for right now, I want to be able to win, right? I want to want to win, and that's hard for me to do. because of how I know I've acted previously, back when I did club swim.
Hmm.
Um, however, as like my current actual reaction is usually, um, whenever I get asked to go to, usually like I got pressured to go to body by the fuck's his tag? Jesus. It's Jordan.
Yeah, Brass. Yeah.
So what's Jordan? Yeah, Brass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Brass pressured me to go to Bodied, and he pressured me to go to last Monday's Recovery Weekly.
Hmm.
And Quang pressured me to go to Gommel, right? And so it's more like me trying to survive now that I'm in this predicament, rather than like trying to win, right? It's like, oh God, oh geez, oh fuck, I have to play this guy and I have to make it out on top. Shit, what am I gonna do, right?
Hmm.
Or it's I've like resigned, like, oh, I took my win, I'm done. Uh, please beat me so I can like call it a day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, I'd say that's my current mentality is like trying to survive and like get through the predicament I've put myself in, because I normally don't register for this sort of thing. I don't register for events. Like I don't compete that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy
I
competing?
also know there's it's fun in the moment. It's not fun before. It's like it's not it's I don't find it fun to like register and like travel to events, or like it's like nerve-wracking. I don't like traveling to events. I don't like going to events, but when I'm there, it's the familiar feeling takes over, and it's fun from there. Or at least like until bracket, and I'm like, oh Christ, I have to play Ben. I have to play Osify. I have to play Jmook. Fuck, what am I gonna do? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I've kind of also, I usually go to events these days to support a guy named Violence, who's like a Samus labber who does a lot of theory crafting.
Yeah.
And usually what I do is I talk to him, and he wants me to like do like something in tournament, and so I just do what he really wants me to do, and get the results for him, right?
That's awesome.
So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I guess that's my goal right now, is to how do I say it? Get more Slippy VODs, and make more Uncle Punch, or have more valuable Uncle Punch replays for other people to figure out when I eventually stop playing this game, because it's at some point it's going to happen, and if the game isn't dead by then, somebody else will be able to like figure out this character during that time, or at least with the amount of VODs that I've output.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. People can use your VODs for sure. I mean, especially if Violence is backing you on them and giving you that data to use. I have a question on something that you said earlier, which was you want to win, but you're sort of like afraid of like how that went in club sports and swimming. Do you believe that you've grown since that time to allow you to be able to compete, or do you fear that you still inside are that person that's gonna just have that ego or that rage maybe?
I don't think I've grown. I don't think I've grown. I don't think I think I'm still that sort of the person innately that's really competitive and can get upset, and I just don't think I can do it, right?
Yeah,
I think it's going to be something that I'm going to have to keep in check for the rest of my life, and that's just kind of how it's going to be.
How do you do that then? Do you just try to avoid situations like competition, or do you try to work on that in competition?
I like being funny. I'd say when I first entered tournaments, I found it funny to do nothing as well. Like I found it funny to like let go of my controller while playing. I found it funny to like make joke tags. I found it funny to have a goofy persona.
Hmm.
back in the day. And that made it a lot easier to compete because, I mean, on top of that, right, I found it easier to play like a low tier or not a low tier, but playing a non-top tier character because they were excuses for me not to like get upset with myself
I see.
or like get mad in tournaments.
That's interesting. Do you see that competition, like that competitive side in other outlets in life, or just like video games or sports in general? Like, do you have any other outlets of competition that you see that side of you in, or is it just Melee right now?
Uh, every once in a while, I'll see it at like work. Like I'll be disappointed in myself for what I perceive as like underperformance, right?
Hmm.
Or it's more like an internal negative than me being like toxic to other people. Where maybe at the gym, I didn't do these reps properly. Uh, but now that I'm tired, I can only do a drop set. That might upset me. I might feel like I'm doing under. I might feel that I'm underperforming at work, and that'll really upset me, right? Um, but I think the key, the see, like, I think the similar, how do I say it? The one thing that is consistent during these situations that it's always something that I perceive about myself rather than uh, me comparing myself to somebody else.
Hmm.
I'd say. So I guess I beat myself up a lot. Is what I'm trying to say. I guess that's my way of expressing the competitive outlet is that I tend to beat myself up a lot outside of Smash.
Yeah, I feel that. I'd love to learn because I know you're a really interesting guy, and I like to poke your brain a little bit. But uh, when you say you beat yourself up, do you think that Smash has allowed you to work on that? Where
Um, I mean, I came into the game with the mentality of not wanting much out of it and kind of just accepting losses, and I think that's been pretty consistent. So I'd say no. I'd say that's the way that I handle the rest of my life and the way I handle Smash are different in a sense.
do you like that
Where
separation? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I do like that separation.
Hmm.
I'd say that Melee was supposed to be a an outlet for like to enjoy myself and not to be really competitive, and it's kind of it's satisfied that, and I was lucky enough to improve and get really good at the game. Even still, like with that mentality that I had. Mm,
Let me ask you
what
a
was it?
let me ask you a
Yeah.
question. I think that's a really important thing to have in Melee is that sense of you're just having fun. It's a video game. You're here in a great community. You want to have fun, and I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with at all levels. I mean, you see anywhere from guys like me getting angry to guys like you or above getting angry at the game and the competitive portion of it. Do you have any tips for people who might struggle with that? That because you have that separation where you can enjoy the game that you love.
Uh, I'd say that the more you can play in a singular game, there's camping, but then there's like choosing not to interact when you could interact, or interacting suboptimally. I find that interacting suboptimal, it's like finding something funny to do, right? Like standing still next to somebody's shield when you should be uh doing something different. I found that like doing things that were funny um was a way of kind of keeping myself in the game and giving myself like an example or an excuse of saying, how do I say it? Like giving myself an excuse of, oh, I lost, but I did this really funny thing, so I'm still happy with what I did, right? uh That's kind of a boiled down answer. I'm sorry.
Oh, there's nothing to be sorry about. It's a great answer. I want to ask you a little bit about humor because items on is both on and off the sticks. I want to get to know the people as well as the players on the stage, right?
Mm.
You touched on it a little bit about how you want to enjoy the game and you bring humor to the game and that helps you. How is humor in your mindset? Like do you think you're a humorous guy? Is that something that you want to be known as? Do you want to try to make people laugh when you get in the venue? Does it play into your persona of being Morse code?
It it definitely used to
Mm-hmm.
back before COVID. Now I don't know actually. I just kind of show up and play the game, and whatever happens happens. The I don't think I'm innately a funny person. I think that I just uh, it's almost like exhibitionist, the stuff that I used to do back before COVID. But now how do I say it's like I just don't do a lot of funny stuff these days. I just kind of like play the game, and I guess the stuff that I used to do back in the day that I thought was funny, uh, just kind of got ingrained in me or ingrained in my play style, and so I just kind of do it now, and it's just kind of who I am. So, uh, I if people think that I'm funny, sure, but it doesn't really bother me at this point.
Mm.
I just want to go in. If I end up going to a tournament, I just want to like play the game, go into the tournament, get knocked out of the tournament, and then I guess enjoy uh, what else is at the tournament, what else is at the venue, what else is around the venue. I guess
Yeah, I feel that.
that was a non-answer or not, but
No, that's a great answer. I want to switch it up a little bit. You've been in the Michigan scene for a while now. I'd love to learn a little bit about how the Michigan scene has evolved in your time, and where do you think the state of Michigan is today in 2023, where we see, I believe, a little bit of a resurgence.
I don't know. I like to put the time that I spent initially in the scene. I like to put it on a pedestal. Back in the day, I remember there was, at a U meme, you could find the Ann Arbor crew, which is run by I remember Heartstrings is Ann Arbor crew. You could find, like the Michigan State crew, which had like Juan and the Oak. You had the Gentlemen's Club from Kalamazoo, who had like Blake and Seabet and Captain Hines. You had you had KJH and Duck in Kalamazoo that would show up sometime. And I put those times like on a pedestal. And so when I come around now to like locals, I don't see like these guys like all grew up. They got jobs. They stopped playing. And I don't I don't recognize anybody in the scene anymore. It's and the perspective has changed. Back then, I was just like a goofy kid who made, funny fake tags, and drank Mountain Dew. But now I am like a top player, and nobody knows all like the stupid stuff that I did back in the day. And so it's how do I describe it? There might be a resurgence in the melee scene for Michigan, but really, like, I still put the good old days on a pedestal, so I don't think I can accurately answer that question.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, let's talk about the good old days a little bit. What did you enjoy back then? What was, you're talking about all these different crews and clubs coming in for locals. What was the vibe like? Was the competition, you think, better back then?
I'd say so. It was maybe the scene is just like, because I'm a lot better, the scene feels smaller. But back in the day, it was new. Maybe it was the idea. Maybe it was just because it was so new and fresh. I went to like, gosh, I remember going to like a high schooler only tournament, right, with like 100 or so players. I remember the Michigan Arcadians, where I remember Yo-Yo winning like $1,000 off like an Arcadian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, to me back then, that was like unheard of, right? Again, it's probably not, in reality, it's probably not nearly as flashy and as glamorous as I think it is, but it's probably just because I am, or it was new at the time, and it's now that I'm old and decrepit, it's not new anymore. It's kind of just like the same old thing. I mean, we like I remember back in the day at the old venue for the big house, making top 8 in the PM event and being let into the it was this like corner, it was like this suite where top 8 was being held, but not only was top 8 being held in this suite, it was people were like partying in the room. So I remember like seeing like Nunn and Hugs and Plup just like drinking and hanging out there while people were playing like top 8 PM, right? Like that was, it was a sense of rarity because I'd never experienced this before, and it was a sense of exclusivity that I'd never experienced before, and that the glamour from those two things, I think, kind of they give me like rose tinted glasses. What even was the question? I'm like ranting.
No, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted. I'll ask you another question then, which is, you talk about this air of exclusivity, which is interesting because now, especially with some of the names that you've taken, I feel like you could find that exclusivity or those little, spots where maybe a guy like me can't get in type deal. Is that something that you yearn for, or is that something that you think is past now and you've had your fill?
I haven't, ever since that big house, ever since those like big house side events, I haven't experienced. The last time I experienced that sort of like rarity and exclusivity was it was an event called On the House, where it was when, I think it might have been the year that the big house went from being hosted in a hotel convention center combination in Flint to the Kobo Center. And as a result, the PM event was then hosted in a hotel. And on top of being hosted in this PM, in this hotel room, it was invite only. So not only did I get invited into this like hotel room, I then like played in this hotel room as well. Like it was invite only, so it was exclusive, and it was in like a hotel room. So it was, I guess, I consider the hotel room being the rarity here, which is kind of cheesy, but
yeah. But it created.
I guess it worked for me then. Yeah, it created the vibe. But I mean, now like the last thing that I ever experienced of like sort of exclusivity for me being like a good player was, or is, the VIP little like spots right next to like stream setups where people play, and that's just like, it just doesn't have the vibe. It doesn't have that like special vibe anymore, or at least it never did have that vibe, right? Well, I never thought that the little cordoned off area for top players to won't really have that vibe of exclusivity. It was just kind of a place where people just played, right? It wasn't this like luxurious idea of like people are partying. People, it's almost like a club sense. Like people are partying, people are dancing, and people are playing all at the same time. And dude, I don't know, man. I'd say, how do I make this like short? The initial when I played in this like hotel room at the big house, right, for top 8, right, and being allowed into this like space, I guess that made an imprint on what I consider to be exclusivity, and nothing else has met those conditions ever since then. The VIP areas where top players play has not cut it, right? And so I haven't really experienced that in a long time. I guess the closest thing would be the after party at Sheep's place yesterday, I'd say.
Yeah. Shout out Sheep.
That's probably it's probably the closest thing actually. But if that didn't really do a dent in me, then maybe I'm just desensitized to it all at this point, right?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting because you said how like that experience made an imprint on you, and I definitely can see that because I know people like, for example, those we're referencing at Sheep's Side. Those are after parties after like Bodied or some type of tournament, and I can definitely see like people are like, "Yo, that was so sick," da da da, and like having that same air of like, "Yo, I made these friends, I got to meet these guys," da da da. So I can definitely see how that plays into like your thought. I think also leading into my next question. I think, I am a man of the people. And so I think a lot of people they bristle when they hear the word exclusivity. But I also believe that it isn't a bad thing because so much is open to the Melee community. So much is for the people, by the people that sometimes, people want to go into these closed circles or go into these little enclaves and feel a little special. And I guess my question would be, what do you think we can do as a community to make people of all different types of, play levels and styles feel those moments like you felt?
I mean, like maybe the Arcadians might be like a surrogate way of doing it. I mean, if you're partying, right? If you're partying like after a tournament, that might be like a vibe, right? If you're like at a national and you can find like people to party with, I'd say that's probably closer to what I'd experience. Socially, I guess. So like I'd say socially partying after like finding people to party with like a national would be closer socially what I'd experience. And I'd say competitively, I'd say probably the Arcadians do it the best. But really, if you're asking me to like innovate on something, I'm not the guy to ask. Like, I guess that's too big of a question for me, or at least I don't have an answer to it.
No, I think you answered it great. No, I mean, listen, this ain't the innovation station out here, man. We're just chatting, so I feel you on that. What do you think of like these new crop though of guys coming through now and making names for themselves in Michigan, in terms of not just play, but in like holding tournaments. Coin coming back and doing these Bodied series. ZR Acid gonna do the Side House, which is gonna be a bracket before Big House, and working on Dearborn. We have Ravian going, with the Recovery, the tournament that you went to, the local on Mondays in Detroit, and doing the streaming. Players like Negative, Sheep, who's been here in the scene for a while, but now like, again, making these, big tournament runs. Where do you think the state of Michigan Melee is, and are you excited for the future?
I don't know. It's weird because how do I describe it? I've always been like after COVID, I had this feeling that we would never bounce back. And really, like even before COVID, I didn't do much. And so I wasn't the way that I consider it is that like Melee is big enough to like satisfy my needs for like a competitive scene. For example, like I can go to a tournament now. I can go to Recovery now and I can play like awesome. Cool, right? Mm-hmm. I can play Ginger at Recovery. I can play KJH Recovery. That's perfectly fine for me, right? I am personally satisfied. But I guess I'm not involved enough in the scene to actually give an accurate response of whether or not, how good weeklies are, how good are the players, what's the social, how's the social aspect of the scene, because I'm not involved enough. I remember, like, again, I still put the old pre-COVID, like 2018, 2019 scene like on a pedestal. Like memes, Victory Road, all this stuff Tanner Thompson used to host back in the west side of the state. Like Kings of Kazoo, Queens of Kazoo. Like I can't answer that question because I'm not involved enough to gauge it. I don't think we're ever going to be as big as like Brawlhalla is right now, but I'd say that I'd say that I'm satisfied with where we are right now. I thought the scene was much smaller, and I guess it's not. So that's a good sign, right?
Yeah.
I guess I just have to get more involved. I guess I have to go to more recoveries. I have to go to more weeklies, and gotta go to more bodies and and get a feel for what's going on these days.
Yeah. Is that, I guess, the last line of question before I switch it up then is that something that you're interested in doing? Do you want to be more involved in the scene, or are you happy with the level that you are now?
I think that my limit is like one monthly a month and one weekly a week is probably what I probably should set myself to.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good. That's a lot.
I think that's enough for me, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. I'm sure that there's a lot of people who, I mean, you brighten up the room when you get in, so I'm sure a lot of people are happy to hear that. Moving on a little bit, I always wanted to know where your tag came from and why the 762 at the end.
Oh, I stole it from my brother's Xbox Live tag. It's not even mine.
You just kept it. I know that you've had a lot of joke tags and a lot of like joke sponsors. Shout out Mountain Dew. Is that like, have you ever thought about changing the tag like permanently, or you just Morse code for life? I like Morse code. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think I'm Morsecode762 for life. I mean, if I go into like Brawlhalla and I manage to get good, I'll probably just have like a fake tag there and just never use like in the fantasy world where I get really good at Brawlhalla, right? Or like some other game where they don't know who I am, I might just make like a fake tag and just run with it, or just like repeat the process of never having a constant tag and just having like stupid tags, because I think it's funny for people to play against and potentially lose to like some dude with like XXX quickscope, like something so like asinine and dumb that it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, no, I love like the tag culture, because in sports there isn't that, right? You don't get to choose, like maybe there's a couple guys with nicknames, but you don't really get to choose them or anything, and you go by your name. Yeah. But I just love, like, you just meet some guy and it's like, like X quickscope 38X, and it's like, damn, this guy's cracked. Like, what the hell? It's pretty funny. You're talking about getting into Brawlhalla. Are you into any other games competitively or even casually, or are you just a melee guy or an PM guy or platform guy?
I play a lot of I guess kind of go with whatever my friends are playing. Usually I play a lot of RuneScape, actually. I play a lot of old school RuneScape. I'm actually playing it right now during this podcast. What else do I like playing? Let me check my Steam real quick. What have I played lately? I used to play a lot of, it's a game called Deep Rock Galactic with all my friends. Usually it's whatever my friends are playing. I've been burned by my friends where it's my friends like to buy games and then like play them for like a month and then drop them. And I'm not the type of guy. I'm pretty frugal. And so I find it kind of upsetting where we don't stick with a game for like a long time. And so every once in a while we'll find a game that we really, really stick with, right? Or like we find a free game that we can pick up.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the games that I like sticking with. So that's how do I describe it? It's like those are the games that I like playing with my friends. The games that I like playing are the ones that I can play with my friends consistently. So it's for the most part that right now that's just Deep Rock Galactic. For personal fun, I like playing old school RuneScape, and for competitive stuff, I like screwing around with Melee and Brawlhalla a little bit because I find them fun.
What are some of the things that you do outside of gaming that interest you? You know, I know you have that 9 to 5 grind right now, so it's hard to find time. But I know you're talking about going to the gym and stuff like that. Is that like a hobby, or is that just like maintenance type deal? What are you doing outside? I guess.
Uh, well, for context, school was like my biggest excuse not to do a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I used it a lot to not go to Melee events, especially. But now it's not a thing. I've spent more time like going to the gym. I'm counting my calories, so I'm trying to like lose weight because my end goal there is to drop to like a healthy BMI so I can buy a bunch of new clothes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd like to I guess like linearize my wardrobe because I have a lot of junk clothes that I want to get. Like I want to clean up my closet, but I don't want to buy clothes until I'm at a weight where I think that I'll stick at, right? That I'm like comfortable at. I like gardening. I planted a few pepper plants, jalapenos,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm probably gonna go pick them, or I'm gonna go see if any of them are like harvestable after this podcast. So I'm gonna take care of that. I do a lot of controller stuff.
Really?
I got really into like making fobs, so I bought, I believe like last week I bought a bunch of like fob PCBs, and so I assembled them, and so all I need is like a controller to go into.
Mm-hmm.
So I like doing that for myself because I feel that there are not a lot of people experienced with fobs, so I might as well just learn how to do it myself. I think it's like a growth thing in a sense.
Yeah.
It was part of my bachelor's degree, so I figured that I needed to do it. My social life, I didn't really have a social life during school.
Mm-hmm.
It was mostly like getting up at 10 and then going to bed or going home at 10 p.m. and then like playing that play till 12 and then sleeping. And so like I need to like talk to more people and hang out with more people and make an excuse to go out. I mean, tournaments are like a way of doing that, but I need to do that more. That's also like something that I've like been working on, or at least like doing, is like following up with people and going to like how do I describe it? It's kind of weird how you describe how the question is addressed because it's what are you working on outside of maybe this really wasn't the question, but I interpret the question as what are you working on outside of Smash, or what do you do outside of Smash? And the idea in my mind is, oh, I'm working on partying and enjoying myself.
That's
And
awesome.
that's kind of it's not really a thing you really do, but it's kind of, or it's not really something you try to work on. But I guess that's something I like to perceive that I like to work on, or at least I perceive myself as working on,
Yeah.
right?
I think
So I guess that's. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think that's definitely a valid thing to work on. I mean, I think that's the beauty of life, right? Is growth in all aspects. So if that's something you want to work and grow in, then you got to focus on it a little bit, even if it sounds like sort of odd to talk about, right?
Sure.
Yeah. But I want to ask you a little bit, like, do you think maybe this is more like, I don't know, a big picture thing, but like, do you think growth is important to you, like, as a person, like as outlook? Because I see, like, I hear a lot of like, I'm working on this, like, I'm trying to improve on this, I'm trying to like get better at this. Is growth important to you as a person?
I'd say so. I'd say that something my parents really put into me, I guess, or at least like I guess their attitudes towards academic performance kind of instilled in me is that I always have to be doing something, and even though that kind of like puts me on edge and is a stressor, I think that's inherently something that I need to have. So I'd say um yeah, I'd say that like having something to work on and something to do is extremely important for me. I'd say that it's something that I was raised with, or it was a value that I was raised with that
Hmm.
I liked. I think I want to maintain over time.
Do you think that you have, any value that you're obviously willing to share on a stream, but do you have any like important values or mindsets that you think are important just like that were instilled in you, or do you think that was one of the main ones?
Well, I mean, I think the I think I've already kind of described the two things that I've learned from my life are you can never be the best, and two, uh, you need to have something you're doing, or at
Hmm.
least you need to like be working on something or like maintaining something, or at least the idea of like responsibility, right?
Hmm.
Uh, Having responsibility and being able to accept that you're not going to be the best, or the idea that perfect is the enemy of the good is are the two things that I think I've learned, and I think that um, I've just seen so many people beat themselves up in Smash about not being good enough, but not being able to kind of there's a certain amount of, and even how do I say, even though I beat myself up, I think there's a certain amount of uh it's like acknowledgement. There's a certain amount of not accepting it, and there's a certain amount of like you don't want to accept that you're not like you don't want to accept that you're bad, or how do I say it? You don't want to like say I'm bad and that's okay. It's more like I'm bad and I'm working on it, and as long as I'm working on it and I'm seeing like a drop of outcome, then that is okay.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's really important. I agree with you on that. Um, Switching up a little bit before we wrap up, I got a couple more questions for you. Thank you so much for coming on, by the way. This has been an awesome
Oh,
talk.
of course.
Uh, I'm always interested in like what people are doing. You're talking about academically. Can you just describe like, what you did in terms of academics and where you are now in terms of your job, if you're cool with that?
Sure. So I did electrical engineering for my bachelor's,
Hmm.
and now I'm working a job at an automotive supplier doing software development. It's not exactly uh, what my bachelor's taught me to do, but right now I still like review my bachelor's notes, and some like after this, after I pick the peppers, I'm going to redo like an old linear algebra exam because I want to like stay on top of all uh, my bachelor's notes, because I mean, one, I pay good money for this stuff,
Yeah.
and then two, I feel that the linear algebra is a building block towards what my bachelor's, like the end result of my bachelor's is.
Hmm. That's
So
that's interesting.
uh, I think that answers your question. I think
Yeah.
if not, let me know.
No, definitely. I'll ask one little one after that, which is what made you want to get into electrical engineering for your bachelor's? What drew you to that?
Uh, it was hesitancy. It was the place that I went to, the university I went to had electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, manufacturing maybe, and then an interdisciplinary, which like you could say it was chemical, but really probably wasn't chemical. Um, and I just chose. It wasn't an intellectual choice.
Hmm.
It was I kind of just picked. I felt that I was capable of doing it, and so I I went for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I it's probably not the best way to do. Yeah, it's probably not the best way of choosing a career. I mean, I got lucky, I'd say, choosing this degree, which got me a good career and a good job that I work, and I'm compensated pretty well for. But it's I do think that I gave up agency in a sense, or at least I didn't do my due diligence when I chose, and that's probably uh, it's something I'm not really torn up about. I never really think about it that often,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm more torn up about how little like thought I put into it,
Mm.
or at least like how much I should have done how much I should have done with respect to what I really did, right? In
Mm.
terms of choosing this career path.
Yeah.
Gosh, I could rant like that's something I'm really interested to, or something that I'm really kind of emotionally into, where it's like there's a lot of like after high school, like gosh, I took this educational class as like an elective during a bachelor's, and uh maybe the class essentially like boiled down school into three different schools of thought, where it was either school is there to get you a job, it's there to make you socially conscious, or it's there to get you involved in the governmental process where you are an active citizen.
Yeah.
And I think that I am more on the side of school is there to get you a job and school is there to make you an active citizen rather than making you socially aware. And it's probably I think it boils down to, I remember anecdotally I'd have to like pick my brain on this more, but I remember freshman year, I think it was like freshman week or something like that, before classes started, we were in an auditorium and there was a speaker that was there to speak to us. And he said, he essentially emphatically said that college was there to get you a job.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably where there's probably more to it than that, but that's probably where I got my mentality of like school is there to get you a job and school is there to like make you an active citizen rather than school is to make you socially aware. But like again, and that's that mentality of school getting you a job probably is why I'm so torn up, because I kind of like just willy-nilly picked electrical engineering out of all the engineering facets that I could. And even though it was because I was capable of doing it, it wasn't really like I didn't know what an electrical engineer could do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really think it through that like hard, right? And I mean, God, I got lucky. I got really lucky that I ended up being pretty satisfied with what an electrical engineer could do and what my job kind of is now, right? So to neatly answer your question, I think that I don't even know, dude. I forgot the question. Shit.
No worries.
Yeah, I forgot the question.
I'm gonna ask you two more questions. One of them silly, one of them more serious. Both of them sort of stupid, but I don't know. I'm interested in what you would say on this after talking to you, and it might be out of left field. But do you believe in fate?
I'd say that one's actions will predetermine the future. So if you are, I think that agency is, how do I describe God? There's the idea that if you believe in fate and you go to the conclusion that nothing really matters because it's all predetermined, it's kind of useless.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to have it's contradictory where you can kind of believe, you can acknowledge fate, but you still have to take agency in your personal life. I'd say that how do I say it? Because at the end of the day, your actions will impact the future, right? And sometimes that's hard. Like agency, like basic agency is like really hard sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think there's an idea where willpower is a limited resource that you regain when you sleep, right? Like it is like agency in making like good decisions consistently, like in life. That's like a really fucking hard thing to do. It's a lot easier to make the easy decision that might not be right than the hard decision that is definitely right.
Mm.
And again, that's like a growth thing. That is something that it's hard to do. It's really hard to do, and it's everybody wish it was easier. I wish it was easier to do, but it's a struggle, and it's what I think to a certain extent, if you're willing to take up that challenge, it's there. It's always going to be there.
You're talking about agency, and you've also talked a little bit about the innate when you talk about competition and ego earlier on in the interview. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are in what is something that you can control in terms of agency and what is innate for you.
I'd say that I think I'm of the opinion that what one feels is innate. I'd say that it's like I'm like the example of like machine learning, where in comparison to regular code, in regular code you can explicitly tell the machine to do something, but in a machine learning system it's all math. And how you approach changing a machine learning system to how you approach changing a traditionally coded system are innately different. And I would consider that the machine learning system is drastically more complex. And I'd like to compare that machine learning system to how I guess like I function, where it's the innate. You can try to reward parts of the innate and hope that the outcomes you want come out of the system, and that's like the best you can do. On that, I'd say that you can't really control what you feel, but you can control how you can try to control how you act, or at least you can to the best of your ability you can control how you act and how you respond to how you feel. And you can kind of hope that how you act affects the innate. And I think that's where like agency is like the line between agency is your physical response to the external environment rather than like what's internally going on in your head.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
I don't know. I'm hoping that was. It's probably like it's not like a good answer, but I mean it's kind of a rushed answer, but it's the answer, or at least it's the answer I'll stick with.
Yeah, I think it's a great answer. Yeah. And my last question for you, a little bit of a silly one, is where did this whole Mountain Dew thing start? Have you just always been a ride or die for Mountain Dew? And if so, why, man?
My favorite soda is root beer and cream soda, actually. Have you ever heard of montage parodies before?
Like a genre or like a thing?
Yeah, it's like a it's so like a montage, like a Call of Duty montage. Like it's like the equivalent of a melee combo video. And what a montage parody is like a hyper saturation of a it's like a hyper saturation of like a Call of Duty montage.
Okay,
that is what a montage parody is.
Yeah.
And so if you look up like COD montage, and then you look up like if you go on YouTube and look up just montage parody, you'll I'd say I find it kind of hard to describe in words, but I'd say that the idea of like hypersaturation, you should kind of understand if you go on YouTube and look up COD montage and then see what's there, and then see montage, look up montage parody and see what's there. I think you'll understand what I mean by hypersaturation.
Yeah, I feel you. I think I get the vibe.
And back in like high school, my high school friends and I were really into like COD montage, or we were really into montage parodies.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mountain Dew and like Doritos were like icons of this hypersaturation. And so I found it really funny to just like chug 2 liters of Mountain Dew as like a joke. And that kind of just it became habituated at some point, and then just kind of stuck with me.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been Items On with Morse Code 762. I'm your host, Ethiopium. Thank you so much for watching and listening.